Today we're diving deep into the terrifying universe of the Alien franchise, from the claustrophobic horror of the original to the action-packed thrill rides and philosophical exploration that followed. We're ranking every film in the series. Whether you're a die-hard fan or new to the saga, stick around as we count down from the worst to the best. Let's jump into it right now. Welcome back to the Nerd Social. I'm Nathan. As always, if you want to jump ahead of the intro to any of the movies in my ranking, see the chapter links below. So I already reviewed Alien Romulus. I posted a review on Wednesday, the day before it debuted for general audiences. You can find the link of that review up there. In that review, I mentioned that Romulus was the 8th movie in the franchise, but that was a mistake. It's actually the 9th. So we're ranking every Alien movie from the absolute worst to the pinnacle of sci-fi horror. This is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion, so if you haven't seen all of the films, consider this your warning. Spoilers ahead. So the Alien franchise is iconic, with films that range from groundbreaking to not so much. I'm going to break down what worked and what didn't and why each film landed where it did on this list. All right, starting with number 9, we have Alien vs. Predator Requiem. This is sitting at a 12% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. So I'm going to start with the pros. The film was R-rated, which allows for more graphic violence and horror, which is more fitting for this franchise. The previous Alien vs. Predator film was the first in the franchise to have a PG rating. The introduction of the Predator Alien could be interesting concept that adds a new layer to the xenomorph lore, but this film suffers from poor lighting, editing, with many action scenes obscured by darkness or cut too quickly, making it difficult for audiences to follow the action or appreciate the creature designs. This is particularly frustrating in a film that relies heavily on visual horror. The plot was overly simplistic and derivative, focusing on the basic premise of aliens wreaking havoc in a small town without adding much depth or innovation. The human characters are largely forgettable, serving primarily as victims, which diminishes the emotional stakes. Also, the film was generally regarded as a low point in both franchises, with critics and fans alike criticizing its lack of creativity, poor execution, and failure to live up to potential of a crossover between the two iconic series. At number 8, we have Alien vs. Predator from 2004. This is sitting at 22% Rotten right now. So the pros of this film: it delivers the promise of the Aliens vs. Predator battle with engaging action sequences and a unique pyramid setting that adds to the tension. But the cons: it was a PG-13 film, like I mentioned. The decision to tone down the violence and horror to achieve the PG-13 rating limits the film's impact, making it feel tame compared to more intense entries in the franchise. Story is, again, simplistic and lacks depth, relying on novelty of the crossover rather than developing a compelling narrative. The human characters are a little more than cannon fodder, and their backstories are barely explored. Sanaa Lathan is in this though, so that's nice. Always nice to see her. The human characters, again, are largely forgettable, with thin personalities and minimal development, making it hard for audiences to care about whether or not they die, basically. Yeah. At number 7, we have Alien 3, 1992. This is sitting at a 44% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. Pros: it was a return to the franchise's darker tone, with a strong focus on Ripley's character and the eerie industrial setting of a prison colony. But the cons: the film suffered from chaotic production, with multiple script rewrites, director changes, and studio interference. This led to an inconsistent narrative, with elements like the origins of the xenomorph, which comes from ox or dog, depending on the version, feeling underdeveloped. The controversial decision to kill Newt, Hicks, and Bishop off-screen at the beginning of the film alienated most fans who had become emotionally attached to these characters, especially Newt. This undermined the sense of continuity and emotional investment. And finally, the pacing is uneven, with slow, meditative scenes that can feel aimless, followed by bursts of action. The middle portion of the film in particular drags as characters search for the xenomorph with little success. Number 6 is Alien Resurrection from 1997. This is sitting at a 55% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. Pros: the concept of cloning Ripley and the merging of human and xenomorph DNA is intriguing, and I'll get to that later on in the countdown. The visual effects are solid. The film's dark humor sets it apart from the previous entries. However, speaking of, the tone is inconsistent, oscillating between horror, action, dark comedy, which can be jarring for viewers expecting a more cohesive experience. The plot is convoluted, with multiple subplots: cloning, military experiments, the mercenaries mission. The lack of cohesion making the film feel directionless at times. The new characters, including the mercenary crew are less compelling and underdeveloped compared to the ensemble in the Aliens or Alien movie. They often come across as generic archetypes rather than fully realized individuals. All right, moving on to number 5. This is starting to get into better movies here. Alien Covenant from 2017. This is sitting at a 65% of Rotten Tomatoes right now. The storyline feels recycled from the earlier films, and the crew's poor decision-making is frustrating. The film struggles to balance horror with its philosophical themes, leading to some disjointed narratives. However, the return to horror was much appreciated. The film reintroduces the horror elements of the original Alien with intense scenes of body horror and suspenseful encounters with xenomorphs and neomorphs. The film features the return of the classic xenomorph, as I mentioned, along with the introduction of neomorphs, adding new layers to the creature design and their life cycle. The film is visually stunning, with beautifully shot scenes that balance the horror of the creatures with the eerie beauty of the alien landscape. And number 4, we have Prometheus from 2012. This is sitting at a 73% of Rotten Tomatoes. So the cons, the script is riddled with plot holes and inconsistent character decisions that leave viewers scratching their heads. Fans expecting a direct prequel to Alien may be disappointed by its broader focus, but the film delves into deeper questions about creation, the meaning of life, and humanity's place in the universe, adding intellectual weight to the franchise. If this was the franchise from the beginning, this probably would have been higher. I actually like this movie quite a bit. Ridley Scott's direction delivers breathtaking visuals with stunning planetary landscapes, intricate set design, and the engineer's ship's eerie grandeur. The film expands the mythology of the alien universe, introducing the engineers and exploring the origins of humanity, setting the stage for future exploration. Like I said, this more contemplative, heady sci-fi is actually stuff that I really like. It just doesn't necessarily gel with the beginning of this sci-fi horror franchise. So I like this movie quite a bit, but if I'm thinking about the quintessential alien film, this is why this is at a 4 as opposed to higher on the list. Number 3 is Aliens from 1986. This is sitting at a 94% on Rotten Tomato. Cons, so some may find the action focus less suspenseful, character stereotypes and relentless pacing in the third act can overshadow the film's earlier strengths. But James Cameron shifts the franchise from horror to action, which other people might actually like, with intense battle scenes between the colonial marines and xenomorphs using practical effects and innovative cinematography. Ripley's maternal relationship with Newt adds emotional depth. The ensemble cast, including Michael Biehn as Hicks, Bill Paxton as Hudson, provides memorable performances. The film's military aspect, including strategy, weaponry, and teamwork, adds realism and engagement, setting it apart from typical action films. And finally, Alien set a benchmark for action films in general, influencing countless movies and establishing the xenomorphs as pop culture icons. Again, if I was listing action films, this would probably be higher or at the top of the list, similar to my feelings about Prometheus. But when I think of Alien, I think of sci-fi horror, which is why number 2 on my list is the recent Alien Romulus. I already spent 6 minutes talking about this film in my review, so I'll be brief. Despite some issues with the xenomorph genetic stuff, the subplot I mentioned earlier, we had the alien human xenomorph hybrid, and we definitely had that here in this movie in the third act. Also, some might have a ethical issue with the use of Ian Holmes in a AI generated performance, the late Ian Holmes. I still think it's a very worthy addition to the franchise. It's a solid return to the franchise roots of the sci-fi horror with strong performances from the cast, especially from David Johnson as the synthetic Andy. I loved the way that he modulated his performance from the damaged Andy to the far more capable Andy. The joke about being left behind had my theater full of critics actually laughing. It was cold. So it's effective horror and a great blend of practical and CGI effects that honor the original film. I want more sequels like this. So, all right, so that means number 1 is Alien, the original. Of course, it has to be number 1 of the list. 1979. It's sitting at a 93 on Rotten Tomatoes right now. The pacing might be a bit slow for modern audiences. It's basically par for the course from movies in the 70s. And some of the effects are a bit dated, but these are minor quibbles in an otherwise masterful film. This is probably one of the best films ever made. The film creates a sense of claustrophobia and dread, using tight spaces and shadowy lighting to build tension. The Nostromo spaceship itself feels like a character, adding to the horror. H.R. Giger's xenomorph design is biomechanical and unsettling, blending organic and mechanical elements in a way that feels truly alien. Sigourney Weaver's portrayal of Ellen Ripley is groundbreaking. Her evolution from cautious officer to determined survivor set a new standard for female action heroes. Finally, Ridley Scott employs slow pacing, minimal music, and sudden bursts of action to keep audiences on edge, with the chestburster scene becoming iconic for its shock value and parodied and referenced in movies over the last several decades. So there you have it. Our ranking of every Alien movie. The franchise has had its highs and lows, but it's clear why it remains a beloved cornerstone of sci-fi horror. Do you agree with my list? What's your favorite Alien movie? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and share and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite films and franchises. See you in the next one. Bye.